Hi, welcome to Cockeyed and Curious. Today I'm going to talk about obsession, compulsion, over collecting. On this table and surrounding the table, there's even side tables, are a collection of games that I'm contemplating selling or giving away. Over the years, I've collected a lot of games that perhaps fit my gaming style for a given moment in time, or I thought they would fit my gaming style and I bought them and I never enjoyed the game, or I never even had a chance to play the game, or anything else under the sun. It just seems like I've been collecting games. I have things like Love Letter, which is a light game that has a little bit of bluffing that it just doesn't compel me. Catan is the game that started it all. I remember in 1997, my roommate came back from Christmas with this game. We proceeded to play it countless times with multiple people. It was a lot of fun. I loved cornering the market of ore. That was like what I always went for, that in the ports. Lots of hours spent. After college, I remembered that I enjoyed this Catan game, and so I looked it up, bought it, and then kind of everything blossomed from there. But at this point in time, I just don't really enjoy it. It's a mean game, has a lot of randomness. There's sort of player elimination because when you play with 4 players, which is the ideal number, usually someone knows they're not going to win, and then they're just kind of stuck there, and they just start wanting to be kingmakers so they can end the game more quickly. I might joke that I'd rather just throw some dice, punch my friends in the face, and be over with it rather than spend 45 minutes or more playing the damn game. So I have Settlers, and then Seafarers, and then Cities, and such as Settlers of the Stone Age. This box looks like it's received a lot of love. I've never actually played a full game of it. One time when my family visited my brother when he was living in Chicago, we set up the game, started playing it, and then we realized it was getting late and people wanted to go to bed. Not me, because I'll play games all night, but other people. The game was put away, never been touched since. I have no interest in playing it. I imagine it's just a subpar version of Settlers, and I think I'm just going to get rid of it. Arboretum. Great concept, fun little art. I like trees, but the game is so damn mean. Near the end of the game, it's more about preventing people from getting points than you yourself getting points. And I just would rather play something that's a little less cutthroat. Whenever I'm in an arboretum now with friends, I just feel like picking up rocks and throwing them at them just because of the intense hatred this game makes you have for other people. I want to enjoy trees. I want to inhale deeply, enjoy the fresh air, not just spite people. Time Stories was actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed playing the base game. I understand that some of the scenario packs are fun. Some are kind of hit or miss. But the issue with it is you go through a process, you do some discoveries, you go to different rooms, different interactions, and then at some point you'll probably fail, and then you have to do it again. And if you fail, you have to do it again. And we ran into this cycle where we just overlooked something. I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty like commonsensical in retrospect, but it was just an assumption that we had made early in the process that prevented us from solving the puzzle as a whole. And so we spent a lot of time just repeating what we had done, and it's kind of excruciating. I'd rather do something new than go over the same ground. Sure, if you play a game, you're kind of doing the same strategy or there's the same set of rules, but this is like a defined story and you're just replaying elements of the story over and over again, and it just becomes a little tedious. The experience with multiple people, this game seems almost best suited as a solo adventure, which is one of the main reasons I picked it up. But the issue that I had with Seventh Continent is odds are you're going to lose at some point, and then again, you're doing things again, and you're just trying to do it more efficiently. So it ends up you're taking notes, trying to memorize what was good, what wasn't. There's a little bit of luck involved, and it just became a little bit tedious. And I did the first curse, got pretty far, then had to restart it, made a blunder, had to restart it again, and then just nothing about that experience compels me to do it again. And the longer I wait, because I just did it and I want some time before my next iteration in the game, means I'm going to forget things and it's just going to be a torturous experience. It's just not for me. I get the appeal. And there's also the whole hunting fishing aspect in the game, which is a little bit of a bummer because it feels like you're grinding. It reminds me of those RPGs where you just need to level up to do the next mission or whatever. And you're just going and fighting these monsters for a little bit of XP at a time just to get to the level. And that's how it felt with the fishing, because you're trying to replenish your deck so you have more life, and it's just not for me. I understand it. I appreciate what it is. It is a fun game, but it's just kind of a one and done for me, and I'm going to move on from it. Star Realms, a game that I love playing as an app. Probably don't need to play it in person. I actually have 2 copies of Hanabi. I like this game a lot, but I misplaced the game, thought it was lost, bought a new one, found the original. Now I have 2 versions. And I've subsequently learned that I prefer playing it online anyway because it tracks a lot of the information for you. So now I'm in the conundrum, do I get rid of one copy or both copies? You might not be able to tell with the shrink wrap on this. You know you have a problem when you end up buying two versions of the same expansion and don't even realize it until later. That's what happened here. Scythe, Rise of Fenris. Ended up with two copies. Don't know how. I'm going to sell the extra one. I have no idea what King of the Elves is. I don't think I've ever played it. I've had it since, 2001 or something. I suspect I'm never going to play it. I should probably get rid of it. Stratego. Awesomest game when I was probably 8, 12. I even played it a little bit in high school. I loved putting the flag somewhere really obvious, undefended. It was amazing how often you could win with that strategy. You just had to be very careful, and it was a little anxiety-inducing just because the flag was out there in the wild. But I won so many games because people would spend so much time going towards where they thought my flag was behind bombs to only discover I hid my 2 or 3 there. A lot of fun. I just don't know when I'm going to play it. If I plan on having kids, I'd keep it for them, but I could also just buy it as well if I was ever in that scenario. My childhood home's copy of Trivial Pursuit. I don't think I've played this in 20 years. I don't know why I would ever play it. I guess it'd be interesting to see what kind of knowledge I have about 1970s and older culture. But yeah, I think it's going to just go out the door. Trivial Pursuit is always a slightly flawed game. There was a lot of luck. It's fun answering the questions. I always appreciate when maybe once a year I'm at a restaurant and they happen to have cards on a table. You can go through some questions. That's a better way of playing Trivial Pursuit than the game itself. I haven't played this game in, a decade. I forget when it came out, but that's about when I got it. 2-player game. I'll probably give it one more whirl before I get rid of it. See if Kelly and I enjoy playing it. I have a suspicion that we might not, but I don't remember the details enough to know if it is the type of game that I like to play. But I suspect it's going to be heading out the door. Here's another one. It's basically Stratego with cards. It's a fun game. I like it. It has a little bit of bluffing. It's quick. You're using a defined set of cards in different ways to kind of blow through the process. There's better implementations of Stratego than this one, but it is enjoyable. But I just don't see myself playing it. It's not the type of game that I think Kelly would enjoy. And then I don't know who I'm going to be realistically playing it with. And if I have a moment to play a 2-player game, it'll probably be something other than this game. Tycho's another early game. It's a lot of fun. It's an action point spending game where you're actually discovering tiles. You flip them over to see what's on the other side. You build bases. You uncover monuments and just all kinds of activities. It's a lot of fun. It's a game that you can really get prone to analysis paralysis because there's an optimal move every turn and you have to figure it out. Obviously, a lot of times you don't make such a move. But what kind of is the problem with this game is it overstays its welcome. It's a long game and it feels like a long game. So for that reason, I'll probably get rid of it, though it is fun and I do enjoy it. I also have a little bit of sentimental value for this because one of my coworkers I like a lot, he and I somehow got started talking about board games. I don't remember how the topic came up. And he talked about how he plays these odd games and he's like, yeah, the one I play is Tycho. And I just started laughing because it was like, no one ever knows about any of these games. And he named one that's pretty esoteric. He said he's not really able to play these games anymore because he's focusing on other things. Now he has a couple kids and whatever else. The friends that he and his wife would meet up with to play these games sort of moved on, last I heard. But every now and then we'll joke about how we have this common love for this game. So just for the sentimental reasons, I sort of want to keep it. But at the same time, I don't really need this on my shelf. In a world filled with more time, I would love to play Trains. It's basically Dominion with a board in a train environment. But I played it a few times with some friends, and we all just wanted to play Dominion afterwards. So I don't know. We didn't really incorporate the board as much as we probably could have. I think some more plays of it would make sense, but given time and limitations and finding people to play with, this isn't where I want to focus my energy. Tapestry. Love Scythe. Like Viticulture. Some of the Wingspan's good. So the Stonemaier games I generally have been a fan of, got kind of all hooked up on the Kool-Aid, enjoy the way that Jamie's accessible online and seems to be pretty transparent, despite the controversies that sometimes rise up related to him and his company. I generally love civilization building games, Through the Ages, which I realize is sort of a question mark or asterisk on that, among others. But I don't know, it just felt a little mechanical. It's not a bad game, but the amount of time that you have to put to get a group into it, how long the game lasts, and what we could be playing instead, it just hasn't hit all the boxes for me. I tried it as solo, it wasn't as engaging as I thought it would be there as well. So a little bit of a disappointment. And then when you add in that the factions are pretty imbalanced, and I don't know, maybe now if the balance rules, they're better, but then I have to mark things up or put up a little cheat sheet to remember the changes. I don't know. I just don't know if I'll be keeping this. I'll give it another shot probably, but I think it's going to be going out the door. I played Climbers once of a bunch of climbers. We were in the New River Gorge. The game wouldn't end. I don't know if we were doing something wrong, but it just kept going and going, and I've never touched it since. It could be fun to give it one more shot, but at the same time, I don't know when that's going to happen. So I have somewhat of a sad story here. A friend of mine, Zach, he was talking about this game, Star Wars X-Wing. We got excited. We were going to play it a whole bunch. I picked up some of the ships. I even went through the process of making this organizer. It has a bunch of pieces in here. We were going to play a lot of it. And then he ended up moving away to New York. And now he's in Chicago. And I've played it once or twice with other people, but just never really connected. One of the issues is it's kind of a build your own deck. It has that Magic the Gathering component where you're putting together cards to have the best fleet. And I just don't have anyone to really engage with on it on a consistent enough basis for me to even feel like trying to create different sets. And then when I've played it, it does feel like it's a little long for how much randomness there is involved. There's a lot of dice rolling, and the dice make or break you. I realize you can mitigate that aspect, but for a game that really shouldn't be more than 20 minutes, but feels like more like an hour, sometimes even longer, it just, unless I'm doing something wrong, I don't know, it just overstays its welcome for the amount of randomness. 20 minutes, sure, but it's just too long for what it is. So I think I'm gonna get rid of it. The miniatures are kind of fun, but I don't really need to put them on display. There was a period of time where I really got into social deduction type of games and a little bit of bluffing as well. And so Coup was the perfect game for that. You had a few rolls, you did a bunch of lying, there was a player elimination, but the games only lasted about 10 minutes, so it didn't really matter if you got knocked out because odds are the game would end another couple minutes from then. And it was kind of fun to watch people as a third party just in between the games as you're waiting for the next one to start up. Many times in my life, whether it was after work with friends and coworkers or on a climbing trip with friends or whatever, just at my house, we played hours of this game, just iteration after iteration after iteration. Lots of love. But then I thought I'd pick up the Rebellion version of the game, which basically provides alternate versions of the different roles. So there's a different type of money builder like the Duke. There's a different type of intrigue type person like the Ambassador, and so on. And so every time you play, you can have slightly different rules. But while that's fun and different roles are interesting, it's hard for people to memorize all the different variations. And so until you actually build up an extensive knowledge, it was hard to have the bluffing element be productive because people would have to consult sheets and not really be aware of what they're doing. And it just lost the beauty of the elegance of the simplicity. I feel like I just heard a cat outside, which is kind of impossible or very unlikely because we have a balcony and that would be some logistics. Someone's gonna pee real fast. Coup, Guatemala, 1954. Same problem as Coup Rebellion, but even more abstracted because you're in a completely different realm. Game's fine. I like the different variations, but it just isn't something I'm gonna play. If I want to play a Coup, I'll just play Coup. I'm not gonna play these variations. Skulk Hollow. Looked like it was gonna be an awesome game. It's one-on-one, a little bit of battle, asymmetric rolls, but it was actually kind of simplistic, not a lot going on. You can get a little in the weeds, but there's just not that much variation. And I played it with Kelly, and she doesn't really like the direct conflict. It was just one of those complete busts of a game. I don't know realistically how often or whom I'll play this with, so it's going out the door. It is a great production. It's cute. It's thematic. I can see having a lot of fun with a kid, or maybe if you had some dedicated roommates who would like to throw down a quick game once in a while. But for where I am in my life and where I'll probably be for the foreseeable future, I just don't know who I'm going to be playing this with. Bonanza is a fun little trading game, very accessible, can go up to large player counts. But I've had a few experiences where people just make arbitrary plays and it gets frustrating because people do things out of spite, not necessarily for their own best interests. And it just seems like there's irrational logic, and maybe it all makes sense and I just don't know what I'm doing, but I just haven't had fun with the game since. And again, it's another game where I'd rather do something else than play that one. Euphoria, perfectly fine worker placement game. It's just not that exciting. It just feels a little mechanic. There's just things happen and then they don't happen. I do like that you're not ultimately going for points. You're just trying to be the first person to trigger objectives the most. You have so many stars, and once you place them, the game ends and that's the end. Like, that is cool. I like that aspect. But something about the board, how busy it looks, how you basically, all the different areas of the land that you can interact with. There's kind of like the sky people, the underground people. I forget the exact terms for these sections of society. But you're kind of doing the same thing in different places, just shuffling different resources. And it just didn't really grip me. It wasn't something that was compelling. And so I think it's going to go out the door. Small World. Great concept. It's fun. I like the mishmashing of the different types of species with characteristics. So every game feels a little bit different. You get different options. But what you're actually doing is pretty simple. There's not a lot of decision space. It's a little bit of a mean game. In terms of battle, it's not as engaging or fulfilling or even interesting as a game like Root. So given the choice, I'd rather just play a different game than this one when it comes to vying over control of a map. I do appreciate it. I do think it's a good intro game. I could see playing an online implementation with people, but to pull the game out, it's just not something I'm interested in. It's happened once or twice in recent years, but it's a rare event, and I think it can leave my collection. It's also a big box, so it's nice to make some more space. Ravine. Never played. Read the rules. Planned on playing it once. Looks interesting. Probably cute, but it's not going to happen. If I have a group of people, I'll probably play a different party game. So I think it's just going to leave. I don't mind games that feel random. I do enjoy dice games, but Smash Up, it's random, it's long, it's frustrating, and to even have an edge, you need to know all the cards in the different factions. You need to know how the different factions combine with each other. And it's just a lot of effort to put into a game that overstays its welcome, is random, and yeah, if it was like a 20-minute game, sure, but the games feel like an hour. Maybe it's more like they last an hour but feel like 2 hours. I'm just oftentimes waiting for them to end. Sometimes the game can feel a little more personal too, like someone will target you because they can versus whether or not they'll get ahead. Or even if they're doing it for their own good, it just feels like this aspect of king making over and over again and randomness without a lot of control. And I recognize if the better you know the decks, the more control you have, but I'm not willing to put that much time into this game. Pandemic's great. I'm going through Pandemic Legacy right now. I'll play the game, but I don't think I really need to get into the weeds into the third expansion in the lab. Maybe it's great. I just have never played it. I've had it for years. I don't really have a crew of people for it. Maybe my group, after we finish Legacy, will look at these kind of off-the-wall additions, but I just don't really see it happening. I think I'll move on to other games or just do Legacy Chapter 2 and then Chapter 0. And then maybe I'll be done with Pandemic. We've already done the virulent epidemics with 6 epidemics. We've done 7 epidemics. We are about done with Legacy. I think I've had my share of Pandemic. I also have Pandemic Iberia, so if I want to do a one-off, that is a much more interesting variation, I believe, than what this is. Same problem. Pandemic with dice. I don't know what I was thinking when I got this game. I'm sure it's fine. I've played it a couple times years ago, but it's just, if I want to play Pandemic, I'm going to play Pandemic. I don't need this version. I'll play it one more time before I give it away. I don't know why I don't enjoy Citadels, and it's been probably 8 years since I played it, but something about it just never engaged me, and it's just another game that felt like it overstayed its welcome. It's better with fewer players because you get through it quicker, but then with more players, there's more roles and there's more variety, so that's better. I just haven't really found a player count that really captures the game, and I don't really know when I'll play it. So I think I'm going to let it leave. It's an old, smelly box, too. I don't know what's happening there. In my craze for the social deduction bluffing games, I picked up a bunch of like the One Night Vampire, One Night Werewolf, and they were fun, and I played them a bunch, but they're kind of limited in what you actually get from them. It's just a quick way to do Avalon when you don't have the group for it or the time, but I just don't really see myself doing these games anymore. If I have a group of people, there's just more fun games to play than these little one-off social deduction games where a lot of it's just kind of arbitrarily done at the end of the day. Never played Don't Mess with Cthulhu. I assume it's another one of these bluffing games that's just a one-off variation. And if you want to do that type of game, play the best one, Avalon. Spyfall, tried it a few times with different groups. It never really clicked with anyone I played with. And I think I'm mostly over the social deduction line games. They're just a little stressful. It doesn't work with a lot of people. It's just you need the right crew for it. If I'm going to play such a game, I'd rather do Avalon. And so this is going out the door. If you want to work on your math skills, this is a great game. It's actually a fun game. It has the press your luck out element to it. It's a good 2-player game. You can play it with more people, but I think it's best with 2. But I don't think I've played this game in 19 years. I don't know if I'm going to play it. I guess I'll try it once. We'll see if Kelly likes it. But I have a feeling that Kingdoms is going out the door. 7 Wonders. It's a great game. I love the drafting of it. But it always just felt a little bit random, or a little bit of just screw someone, or if you don't screw someone, then you lose type of game. And you really need a dedicated group. If someone doesn't know what they're doing, they're just going to give the game to people by passing the wrong cards or taking the wrong cards. And it's not a game that I really want to play a lot to have people learn it. And I don't really know anyone that's good at it. And so given that whole suite of things, I don't know when I'll play it. If I really need an itch, there is a good app version, so I could play the game via that way. But it's just not a game that I really am ever excited about. If I had a different crew, maybe it would make more sense, but I just realistically don't see this game getting a lot of play. And it's a big box, and I think there's just better ways to do drafting than this. I love Blotto games. Through the Ages is one of my favorite games. Codenames is great. His Picnomania is good. His games run the gamut from heavy to light. This is definitely one of the heavier games, Dungeon Pets. Played it a couple times. I could probably play it more, but it's one of those games where you really need to play it a few times so you get it to understand it. I don't think I have people that I really want to play this game with.